What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal back again. I am Shredlord.
Necrotic Nick.
And we are here to bring you another excellent album review. This time, we are bringing you French MELODEATH. Would you call them pioneers or old school boys?
I mean, they've been around for a while and they have an interesting story, and I'll get into that, but they're definitely MELODEATH. 100%.
And they've been around for quite some time. The name of the band is Destinity, and this release is called Ascension.
This also comes out on the 11th of April on Crimson Productions. This band formed in 1996 in France. This is their 10th album overall, and their second since reforming in 2018, I believe. Now, I got in this band in the late 2000s, early 2010s with their albums The Inside and Resolve in Crimson, and this was kind of like right around this point where I was just binge buying anything MELODEATH. Like, that was like my big thing. This was back when they were on Life Force Records. I dug their sound. It was very similar to a lot of bands, and we'll definitely get into that. But this band, at least in their current phase, and it's been the bulk of their sound, is described as MELODEATH / like death thrash. Definitely has moments of both. But this band has changed around their sound a lot. Their earlier stuff, apparently, was way more just black metal. And then they became symphonic, blackened death metal. And then somewhere in there, they said, man, these fucking, bands like At the Gates and In Flames sound really cool. Maybe we should try that out. And that's kind of been where they've been since. And this was kind of a refresher course for me. Like, I hadn't listened to this band in a while. I have 3 of their albums. I thought they were all good. But I kind of was just kind of curious if anything had changed. And spoiler alert, nothing has really changed, at least in the current era of this band.
I've never heard of this band before. This is my first time listening to them on any front. However, I do appreciate the fact that they are French. Their word for yes is oui. And that's half of a wee-wee to me. And a wee-wee, obviously, is a penis. So, it's either a half-wee or a wee-wee. So a half penis or a full penis. So for that, I was already in.
Shred math, everyone.
Yeah, it math correctly. Wee plus wee equals wee-wee equals full penis. But penises aside, let's talk about the album. The track opens with the title track. But the title track is just kind of an intro. So that was a little confusing. I thought it was going to be this big, it's the name of the album. I'm thinking, man, what's this track going to sound like? And it's just a couple-minute intro.
Yeah, I honestly, I hate when bands do that. Like, if you're going to have a title track, make it like a big, bold track, like one of the standouts on it. When you make it just an intro, it kind of like dulls the impact. And this intro, it sets up stuff very much in the vein of countless MELODEATH bands from like the mid-2000s. Like, this definitely has a mid-2000s MELODEATH sound to it. Right down the production, which I believe this was mastered by Jens Bogren, who has a very particular sound. It's rich, it's full, it's MELODEATH.
Oui.
Yes. And then it kind of goes into the next track, Light Up Your Sky, which honestly, I don't see why they could have just called that Ascension and just kind of squeezed the two together as one track. But very mid-2000s MELODEATH. Like, I felt like I was, back in the mid-2000s purchasing, like solo work albums and In Flames albums back in Media Play when that place still existed. That's where I got a lot of that stuff.
It seems like there was a board in the writing room with every MELODEATH trope, and they're just throwing darts at the board and like, all right, we're going to do that.
Well, a lot of this, I would say, very comparable to like the mainstays, In Flames, At the Gates, solo work. Hypocrisy,
Dark Tranquility,
big time, especially with the very lush synths on here, which the synths I think are pretty damn good. Like, they're not too intrusive, they do complement the melodies well, and there's really good harmonies between the synths and the guitars. So if you're gonna have synths, like, have them do something, and they do that really well. But this also reminded me of like all the other bands that kind of came up listening to those core bands we brought up, like the Duskfall, the Arcane Order, Nightingales, Kalinist Circle. Not all of them were from Sweden either. Like, some of those were German. And it kind of has that vibe. And honestly, like, Destinity kind of fit in with that pack anyway, like that next tier of MELODEATH bands. And you can hear it in their music. Like, a lot of the stuff on here, I would say, is very much rooted in the bands that influenced them. And it's not just one band, thankfully. Like, this doesn't just sound like an At the Gates album or an In Flames album. It is mixed up a little bit, and to a degree, I think they kind of go a little bit kind of across the spectrum in terms of different styles. Like, you have more aggressive cuts on here, like Crimson Portrait, Dying Light, Hollow Intense, The Wolf Within, a little bit more blasty, a little bit more aggressive. Always melody, though. Like, there's a lot of great tremolo harmonies and, just like really good, solid hooks throughout. But you also have like the more anthemic stuff across the board, too, like the Rise to the Occasion anthems and such. It kind of goes all over the place. And again, with the lush synths in here, there's definitely some stuff that kind of crosses into like Finland a bit. Like, there's a couple of moments in here that feel a little Children of Bodom-ish. There's definitely some Insomnium as well. Omnium Gatherum, especially in the brighter, more like major chordy moments, I would say.
And there's even a track on here called Children of the Sun, which has a guest female vocalist on it that kind of gives you that classic Beauty and the Beast feel, per se, where she's coming in with like the more cleaner vocals, he's coming in growling on top. Gives it a nice little bit of a contrast. And I appreciate that it was only really one song that they did that. It wasn't a theme that was constant. It was just literally in that one track, Children of the Sun.
Yeah, outside of that, there are no clean vocals on here, which, again, is kind of a thing I prefer in Melodeath. Let the music take care of the melody, and they really do. Like, all of this, it has, like, just great, lush melodies, really solid lead work on here. It's flashy and shreddy at times. Sometimes it's just like good and melodic, and it balances out the aggressive sections, like the big syncopated chugs that come up. Like, there's some really gnarly breakdowns too. This is definitely like more melodic. Like, this is, again, like not like the 90s Melodeath, where it's still pretty heavy, still pretty gritty. Like, they didn't fall so much in love with melody where they felt like they could squeeze in clean choruses all the time. In Flames, looking at you. But there's still like some nice aggro moments on it to remind you that this is still rooted in death metal, and, some good thrashy rhythms to kind of give it like a little bit of extra bite as well.
And musically overall, I just thought from start to finish, these guys did a great job of executing on a lot of different levels, like from a guitar player standpoint. So while there are lead guitar melodies in here, adding those kind of shreddy solos on top of it was a nice kind of feel anyway. Kind of reminded me back of times when, you listen to Arch Enemy, which was kind of an oddity, so to speak. They not only had one guitar player and Michael Amott doing leads, they also had his brother Chris doing the shreddy stuff, and it was nice to hear that contrast.
Yeah, like, again, that's something I expect in Melodeath overall. Like, most of the time, again, it's a lead melody to complement a very nice melodic riff. Generally comes, like, on the bridge, and, they're pleasant, they're not intricate. But here, there's some like really good shreddy leads, and sometimes multiple leads in a song. And for a little while, we had trouble distinguishing whether or not it was a guitar or the synths, because we weren't going to rule that out, because, that's also possible in Melodeath as well. But dude has like just a really clean tone, like lots of cool dive bombs and such, and flashy and melodic. It does add a lot to the music, like a different dynamic, like maybe like a little bit of that thrash sound coming out. Now, overall, I enjoyed all this, and I'll say I enjoyed it mostly for its familiarity. This is a nostalgic throwback for me. This throws me right back to when I got into like Melodeath initially, and it kind of just checks off all the boxes. Like, good solid melodic riffs. They still work a balance between heavy and like, a little bit more tuneful, a little bit more soaring, but within every song, I was pretty much able to pick out like who this actually sounded like. And some of it is a little bit, more like subdued and, like, oh, that's a kind of a blend of things. Some of them are very spot on, like Silver Shades in particular. The main riff on there, I swear, it was just plucked right out of, like 1995, 97 in Gothenburg. It has this flat out just, very At the Gates sound. It sounds like if you asked Siri to play you an At the Gates riff, this is exactly what it would come up with. The sections that have like softer moments where they kind of dial back the guitars and let the synths kind of come out and play, Everdark in particular, kind of sounds like Dark Tranquility. In fact, the vocals will occasionally flip a little bit too. Like sometimes you have like deeper, more death metal roars. In this case, his vocals take on a very mid-register growl. He kind of sounds like Michael Stahn. So, I don't know, like a lot of this, I just feel like, and it's not really a dog because it's still good. Like, this is like the off-brand of a lot of like, major brands I get. Like, this is the Faygo to like, Dark Tranquility's crisp Coca-Cola.
And it's still going to quench your thirst, but the taste is there, but it's slightly different.
Yeah.
You notice it. And if there was one thing that I definitely noticed too about this band is they wear their influences on their sleeve very heavily. That's not a good or a bad thing. It just kind of is what it is. And it really shows in some of these songs. Another track, The Wolf Within, which was the second to last track, that definitely had a very At the Gates feel. Almost like you asked AI to come up with an At the Gates tune, and that's what it came up with. So the influences are there, and they're heavily out there. I'm sure they're unapologetic about it. They like what they like. They create what they create. But the downside to that is it doesn't leave you with anything new or anything that memorable when you walk away from the album. There's nothing that's really going to stick in your craw and go, man, that really grabbed me.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is something that if someone put on and be like, yeah, this is pretty cool. This new Dark Tranquility, did I not hear this? Or this is the new At the Gates? And, you know, they could say no, because that'd be the honest answer. But, you know, I wouldn't say, oh, turn it off then. Like, this is still well executed, and I think execution is, like, a big part of this. And honestly, it still sounds like they're very much in love with the sound. And, you know, like, legit, like, you could have told me this was released in, like, 2002.
Would have believed it.
Would have totally believed it, even right down to the production. Like, it doesn't sound too modern and too polished. It still sounds kind of like that era overall. So even my negatives aren't necessarily the worst, but I mean, it is stock, it is derivative, but it's still well executed. And overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think this is just a good album, like a solid Melodeath album that is very focused on kind of one period, but it does kind of venture out a little bit. Like, you get a little bit of that Finnish style in there too, occasionally some more 90s stuff, but all of it is really well executed, and that's kind of the main thing in here. The vocals are solid. I appreciate the lack of clean vocals outside of the guest vocal, which I thought was pretty damn good. Like, it kind of broke it up a little bit, and it was a more anthemic track, which this, again, kind of checks off all the boxes. You have your aggro tracks, you have your more melodic tracks, you have your more rousing epics and such.
Rebel rouser.
Yeah, all that. It's just, again, I've heard like all this like kind of 1,000 times before, but at the same time, I still like it. So yeah, 3 stars, pretty good album. If you're a fan of like literally any of the bands we listed, which there were a lot, just check this out.
I'm also going to give it 3 stars, or the French translation, 3 wees. Wee, wee, wee. So 1.5 wieners, by the way. This is a solid album. Once again, you know what you're getting, you know what to expect, but while it didn't push the boundaries of creativity, it was still a very solid album. It was executed very well. The songwriting was good. The leads were great. Everything about it was good. It just didn't have as much originality to make it stand out. But overall, a solid album, great musical excursion. If you're a fan of any of those bands we talked about, I would definitely check them out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our Lone Perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we will probably be doing one later this month, possibly on 420, because I'm surrounded by stoners, and that would be, I know, it's a piss test right now? Okay, anyway.
Moving on.
Yeah, but who knows, we might do that. It kind of depends on scheduling, but either way, memberships are the main way to support the channel. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our shirts and hats. That is linked down below. And of course, if you are interested in joining this channel, you can go ahead and do that. Just there's a little button down there. It's called Join. That's not the name of the button. It just says that. I don't know. Maybe it is the name of it. I don't know. But if you press it, you become a member, and that's...
Be one of us, Michael. Be one of us.
It's a little bit less creepy than that, but not by much.
And we won't ask you to eat maggots that are actually chicken fried rice, because we're not that cruel. But I digress. And last but certainly not least, thank each and every one of you, the community, the people who just stopped by to watch, every single one of you taking the time out of your day to spend with us, to comment on videos, to give us ideas, or simply just watching at your computer every day. The amount of love we get from you guys is unreal, and we cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. So from the bottom of our black and cold hearts, thank you so much.
And yeah, tons of content coming in the future. So one more big thank you from me, and we will catch you later.